Are there any lighting techniques that are going to be unfamiliar?
Well, I'm not actually sure what techniques people are familiar with, to be perfectly honest. I think that most of the time people don't notice the lighting. It is sort of a saying in the industry that if the audience didn't notice it was successful. I think that's about 50-50 true. Sometimes when the audience didn't notice the lighting, it was just because there wasn't really any lighting. It was just, you know, doing the bare fundamentals. I think people will notice the lighting for this piece, but my hope is that you notice it as being part of the creation of the space or the movement of the actor, that it doesn't feel like, that you don't look at it and see, oh, and think this is a lighting moment, but that you look at it and it makes you look at the actor more or in a bigger way, or you notice the action of the set in relationship to the actor. For example, there's a part where these ropes are going to fly in and they have these bells on them to sort of mimic the sound of rain, and that performer is actually going to stand and look up and watch these ropes with the bells fly in, and we're attaching lights in with the ropes and bells so that they create these beams of light that are sort of reminiscent of the same shape as the ropes, and they're in among the ropes so that you'll see the beams and you'll watch like this whole thing flying in. And so the lights enhance the moment and make it bigger, but they and so you'll notice it, like the audience will say, you know, I saw when like the ropes flew in, you know, and there was lights in the ropes, but it's not like they're going to think, oh, that crazy lighting moment, right? Because it's about it's about this character who's thinking about killing himself, you know, and he's looking for a branch to throw his noose over so he can hang himself. And so it's about making that moment really big so that we as an audience sit with this character as he experiences this moment where he's planning his own death.
Have you approached this show differently than you would, let's say, just like a modern piece? I know you've done some very interesting work.
Well, I approach every single show differently. You know, again, lighting design as an art tends to fall in a couple of different camps. One of which is that you can work very successfully using a particular formula. That is pretty common formula to be taught, and a lot of people do very well with it. I don't myself use that formula, and I was taught not to use it, but rather to develop like craft my own way of doing things. So every single show, I basically start from scratch, and I create a whole language for that piece that is different from every other piece. So yes, this show has its own language, but so does every show that I actually invest in.
Is there a tone or a color that is going to be mainly used? Will it be many different colors, or is there a certain tone or depth of light that is going to be consistent?
Actually, for this particular piece, color is going to be carried by costumes. There's very little color in the set. There's very little color in the lighting. Again, because it's about watching the performers. I mean, a lot of pieces, like a musical, is about the spectacle as much as it is about the performer. You know, it's about hearing the voice and seeing the dancing, and you know, as much as it is about like connecting with a particular character. So all the scenic elements and the lighting elements and the costume elements tend to exaggerate that effect. You know, so when there's a big button at the end of a song in a musical, it's like the lights brighten, and you know, maybe there's some big scenic effect or something. You know, like there's some big gestures to go with like this big dancing and big singing. But this piece, I really wanted it to be cradled in the performer, but not by removing the lighting as an active element, but by crafting it so carefully that I can make each gesture and word that the performer says feel like it's becoming more from them than it would be if they were just standing on a stage that I just sort of lit. Do you know what I mean? Like enhancing everything as much as possible without distracting from it. Well, I mean, part of his thing was, you know, like not hiding the artifice of the theater, that we're creating a a theatrical piece. But it wasn't about not using that artifice. You know what I mean? He was a master of using that artifice. He just didn't bother trying to disguise it in any way. You know, but the thing is like people still feel it. You know, it's not like it's a little bit ridiculous in some respects to try and pretend like we're not in a theater, right? Because you can't hide the fact that we're in a theater and you're sitting next to people and the guy next to you might be coughing or, you know, farting or something. And I mean, you're constantly aware of the people that are surrounding you.
Yeah.
So, I don't really feel the need to like hide anything, and I feel that generally in my work. So doing it sort of Brechtian, quote unquote, is not a particular challenge for me because I approach all my work with that sort of a strong aesthetic.